Hickok 45 here. Did you ever wonder why U.S. soldiers back in mid-1860, during the Civil War, American Civil War, why they mostly carried muzzle-loading single-shot rifles when something like this was in existence? A lever gun, a real lever gun, the Henry, where you could rack the slide and you could fire several times like that and hit a cowboy. Now I have it empty under the chamber, in the chamber. So yeah, this was available. And I know this is a question that a lot of people ask themselves and probably ask Google, because I know they ask me about it. And I think we've addressed it a time or two. Thought I would today, okay? And maybe just a brief, simple fashion, because I'm simple-minded. Yeah, this thing, this is the 1860 Henry. That alone should, wait a minute, 1860? Now I think it was a year or two before he was out there in any kind of numbers at all. But 62 even. And Civil War was from 61 to 65. Ooh, I'm a historian, right? And not many soldiers had these, even in the North, okay? However, there were, I think, well, it was under 2,000, I think, were purchased by the Union Army, the North, the U.S. And so there were some of them. There were some famous units that had some of these and used them to great effect. But it was very, very limited numbers, right? And so we'll talk a little bit about that. How about I've got the other option out here that was used by almost everybody. This type of rifle musket right there, 58 caliber, single shot muzzle loader. I mean, what a contrast for people in the same battles to be using. Isn't that crazy? It's amazing to think about, isn't it? And I want to thank the folks that help us out, Silencer Central. Wonderful company. They just do one thing extremely well. The famous Banish, they're great. And then Buzz Gun Shop, they've been a supporter for so long and have just helped us in a number of ways. Then the Sonoran Desert Institute, sdi.edu, lots of distance learning courses where you can get on the road to becoming a gunsmith and learn all sorts of things about firearms technology and drone technology and all that good stuff. Also, I want to thank Alabama Holster. Got one in my pocket. Great little concealment Kydex holsters. Want to see it? There it is. Appreciate their support of the channel. Yeah, it's a question a lot of people have asked. I've asked it, and when I knew a little bit less about it, I know just a little bit more now because it's understandable. And we have talked about this before. In military service, the lever gun has never really excelled in general, and it has been used though. It definitely has in military service. The prone position lever is a little bit of an awkward thing. It's a kind of an expensive firearm to make. It's a little more fragile, okay? And one of the things a military firearm needs to be is rugged and as simple as possible. And there's a lot of moving parts in a lever gun. They generally work okay, but getting banged around and dragged around and knocked around, finding replacement parts and all those sorts of things, it would be a little bit more of an issue. But during the Civil War, which I was speaking of earlier, part of the issue was there just weren't enough of them ready yet. They did use quite a few of the Spencers, which is kind of a lever gun, kind of an awkward gun for me, but not many of these were really ready for it. And you had this philosophy among military leadership quite often is that the more ammo a soldier has, the more ammo he will waste, And so they just weren't driven. You would have thought back in 1861 to whatever that the powers that be in the North especially, they had the manufacturing capabilities. They'd been doing everything they could to get one of these in every soldier's hand. But no, not really, not at all. So it's just a real paradox in a lot of ways, and it's kind of perplexing, isn't it? We don't really have that philosophy now as much, but that was kind of the way it was, and it's just interesting that these two firearms are comrades. They're contemporaries is the word I should use, right? Contemporaries. They both lived and breathed and fought in the 1860s. Yeah, big numbers. And again, you know what you have to go through with one of these, don't you? To load it and fire it, you got the ramrod, you got to put powder in, put the ball in on top of it, and ram it down every time you shoot it. And then you have to pick it up and you have to put a cap on it. You want to do that? Let's see if it's loaded. Does that look dangerous if it was? Nope. It is loaded intentionally. And it was essentially the same as just having a bullet lying on the table, because until you put fire there, down into that nipple, it is not going to fire. In fact, sometimes it won't fire when you do that. I thought I would shoot it once. So that's what you had to go through to get one shot out of one of these things. While that darn Henry, and of course the Spencer, and you know, there were lever guns around, just not as plentiful. Let's just shoot the cowboy. Yeah, and there you go. One shot, and then have to powder back in the ball and reload the thing. And you know, you're just, yeah, interesting. Now I love them, you know, they're wonderful, but I don't have to go to war with it. I would have preferred the lever gun. Yeah, no doubt about that. So did the U.S. hate lever guns? Not really, but you know, they didn't like capacity. And that's been an issue right on up through the decades and centuries. They tend to not trust the average soldier, at least, with a lot of ammunition, you know, that they might waste. You know, one shot, one kill, and all that kind of thing. And of course, if you can shoot well, you can be very, very effective. More so with like a trapdoor Springfield, where you can actually, you know, load, shoot, shoot. With this, it's, you know, like about 3 shots per minute, I think, realistically. And that's pretty fast, I think. So it's just an interesting contrast in what was available. So they didn't trust the soldiers in a lot of ways to not waste ammunition. And but they were around. Yeah, you're correct in your thinking. Look at your look at your history and check manufacturing dates and all that kind of thing, and you will see that, you know, these single shot muzzle loaders were, you know, this is in 1861, you know, Springfield. It was being manufactured in the early 1860s. This was being manufactured in the early 1860s, except, what would you say, 99%, 99.5% of the soldiers carried a single shot rifle. There were several different models, but they carried something similar to this instead of something similar to that. So I knew you were dying to know this. So I'm really glad you showed up here in the woods to learn a little bit more about it. Life is good.
Before you leave, I want to remind you to check out our friends Talon Gun Grips and Ballistol. Talon Gun Grips have been a staple of the channel for years. As you know, they make grip tape that you can attach to the grip of your handgun or the pistol grip on your rifle, and honestly, anything you're trying to not drop and have a better handle on, right? Also, Ballistol, of course. Dad's been using Ballistol since the 90s. It's been a staple on the channel as well. They make it's a cleaner and a lubricant. It's non-toxic. It's a great product. Anything for your guns or anything you're trying to lubricate, it's a great way to go. Thank you guys so much for watching the video.